That morning, there was no explosion, no warning, no one screaming. Just a very ordinary moment. Someone reaches for their phone, out of habit, and opens Twitter. A blank screen. A loading circle spinning without end. Somewhere else, Netflix freezes in the middle of a familiar episode. Reddit disappears. CNN, BBC, the names people trust to always be there, suddenly go silent. In New York, on a crowded subway platform, a young woman stares at her phone, tries again, then again. Nothing changes, not weak signal, not a broken device. The feeling spreads quickly, from irritation to confusion, then into something heavier. In Europe, in Asia, offices begin to stir. Families in the early morning sense that something is wrong. Things that are invisible, things that always work smoothly, are stopping all at once. No one explains. No one knows what is happening. Only a quiet but weighty feeling settles into the minds of many people at the same time. That the thing we rely on every day, to work, to connect, to exist, can vanish in an instant. And when it does, we have no control at all. As the silence stretches on, questions begin to form. No one asks them out loud, but everyone thinks the same thing. What is this? An attack from another country? A cyber war ordinary people were never warned about? A government testing a new kind of weapon? Or some unseen force touching a switch no one was supposed to reach? Human imagination always outruns the truth, especially when familiar things disappear. But as the pieces slowly come together, the answer emerges, and it makes people stop cold. Not a nation, not an army, not a massive underground organization. Behind this chaos is a 20-year-old college student, a kid who grew up in the suburbs of the United States. No power, no army, no ambition to bring the world down. Just a computer, a small room, and a lot of time to be curious. That imbalance is what makes it unsettling. Millions affected, a part of the internet paralyzed, and the cause is someone painfully ordinary. Not because he was so powerful, but because the world was far more fragile than we wanted to believe. Paras Jha did not grow up in a dark world. No gangs, no criminal past, no tragedy that would raise alarms. He grew up in Fanwood, New Jersey, a quiet town where at night you can hear the wind moving through the trees. Paras is the kind of kid you would pass on the street and never remember. Not loud, not noticeable, nothing that draws attention. Most of his time is spent in his bedroom, a small room, the glow of a computer screen lighting the walls instead of sunlight. For Paras, that world is enough. Minecraft is where he feels most at ease, not to win, not to show off, but to test. Paras does not just play Minecraft, he takes it apart, changes the rules, tweaks small details, watches what happens when something is pushed beyond its intended limits. This is not rebellion, it is pure curiosity, a child wanting to understand how things work. At school, Paras does not have many friends, not because he is bullied, but because he does not know what to say. Computers are different, they do not judge. They always answer if you ask long enough. In the quiet of that room, Paras learns to figure things out on his own, to solve problems alone, to feel valuable when a line of code finally works. No one praises him, no one stops him. There is no moment where someone says, "This is the line you should not cross." Just an ordinary kid growing up with a computer, believing that understanding a little deeper is always a good thing. At first, everything looks more like a game than a mistake. Paras discovers he can control multiple machines at once, sending small but constant requests to a Minecraft server. No explosions, no destruction, just a server slowing down, then freezing. Players are kicked out. The game pauses. To Paras, it feels like flipping a switch and watching the lights go out. He wonders what happens if more machines do the same thing together. Botnets, at that point, do not look like weapons. They feel like a technical puzzle, an experiment to see if an idea works. Paras uses them to knock small Minecraft servers offline. No one is hurt, no money is lost, no headlines, no police at the door. just a few annoyed players who move on to another server. Everything passes quickly, so lightly it leaves almost no trace. And that silence is what makes it dangerous. There is no consequence strong enough to make Paras stop. No adult asks what he is doing. No teacher, no parent, no system says this is no longer a game. Each successful test builds confidence. He does not feel like he is breaking things, only learning. In that small room, between the glow of the screen and the steady hum of the fan, Paras does not see any boundary being crossed. Only that the internet absorbs everything, stays silent, and seems to not care that a child is learning how to shake it piece by piece. When Paras arrives at college, the world around him begins to shift. It is no longer just the familiar room with the closed door and the glowing screen at night. College brings crowded hallways, casual conversations, and for the first time, Paras meets people like him, people who do not talk much, but when they do, they talk about code, about networks, about how the internet actually works beneath the surface everyone sees. Paras no longer thinks alone. He has friends, people who listen to ideas that once felt too small or strange to share. In long conversations, curiosity turns into something clearer. If small bots can slow a Minecraft server, what happens if the scale grows? If it is not just a game, if it is the entire internet? Mirai does not appear as a grand plan. It forms quietly, in simple questions, in experimental code passed back and forth, in the excitement of being understood. From a kid working alone in his bedroom, Paras becomes part of a small group where ideas are encouraged, nurtured, and pushed beyond safe limits. When more people are involved, responsibility no longer sits with one person. It spreads out. It blurs. No one says this is wrong. No one stops to ask where the consequences lead. Only a shared feeling that if something can be done, why not try? And in that moment, Mirai slips from the hands of a child and becomes something larger, more complex, and far more dangerous. Mirai is not born from a sophisticated break-in like people imagine. It does not crack locks or break firewalls. It does not rely on techniques only top experts understand. Mirai does one very simple thing. It knocks, and the door is already open. Millions of IoT devices, security cameras, home routers, baby monitors, are sold with the same default passwords. Admin, password. Devices plugged into the internet, running day and night, watching living rooms, kitchens, bedrooms, yet never truly cared for. Mirai simply logs in, like a stranger walking into an unlocked house. From one device, it finds another, from dozens to hundreds, from hundreds to thousands. The explosion in scale is not because Paras or his group are exceptional, but because the world neglected basic security for too long. Each time Mirai grows, the initial shock fades into normality. No calls demanding accountability, no emergency alerts, no moral alarms. The compromised devices keep working, their owners unaware. In that quiet expansion, responsibility begins to fade. It is no longer just Paras, no longer just a small group in a dorm room. It is spread across careless manufacturers, uninformed users, systems that prioritize speed and profit over safety. Mirai grows in that gap. No one raises it, yet everyone makes room for it to exist. And when something can expand so freely without resistance, the question is no longer who wrote it, but why an entire system allowed it to go so far. Once Mirai is large enough, a small but dangerous shift occurs. Paras and those around him realize what they built has value. Access to Mirai is quietly sold on the dark web, like a service without a face or a name. Just money, in exchange for the power to silence others. Everything feels cold, efficient, emotionless. Then a name appears on the other side. Brian Krebs, a cybersecurity journalist who spent years exposing the internet's darker corners. His website is targeted, not with threats, not with lawsuits, but with a flood of data unlike anything seen before. Hundreds of thousands of devices converge at once. The site slows, then collapses. A number flashes that makes the entire security community stop and stare. 620 gigabits per second. A new record. But the most frightening part is not the number. It is the calm. No grand warning. No dramatic declaration. Just a website taken down and the world moving on. For the buyers, it is a successful transaction. For Paras, it is the moment things begin to slip beyond control. Mirai is no longer confined to quiet conversations. It steps into the open, breaks old limits, and proves it can do more than its creator ever imagined. Tension builds slowly, not exploding yet, but enough to signal something massive approaching. Something no one will be able to pretend they were not part of. Not long after, Mirai hits an even larger target. OVH, one of the largest hosting companies in Europe, trusted by millions of websites every day. When the attack begins, it no longer resembles an experiment. The volume surges beyond belief. The network strains like a body pushed too far. The number appears. 1.1 terabits per second, shattering previous records. This time, no one can dismiss it as a small incident. The entire tech industry is forced to confront the reality that something invisible, created in quiet rooms late at night, can shake the infrastructure of an entire region. Somewhere, Paras sits in front of his screen, watching reports, headlines, numbers climbing. The feeling is no longer excitement. It is a chill down the spine. This is no longer Minecraft, no longer a few unknown servers. Mirai has become a weapon, used by people Paras does not know. For the first time, the distance between action and consequence becomes painfully clear, no longer abstract, no longer something he can tell himself is just learning. Paras begins to understand the scale of what he helped create, not because someone tells him it is wrong, but because the outside world is moving in ways he cannot control. The climax is near, hanging heavy in the air, silent, like the moment before a storm everyone knows cannot be avoided. This attack does not aim at a single website or company. It targets Dyn, a DNS provider most internet users have never heard of, yet one that quietly keeps countless services running every day. When Mirai focuses its force there, the effect spreads almost instantly. Websites do not disappear because they are destroyed, but because they no longer know how to find each other. Like familiar roads suddenly erased from the map, the global internet stumbles. Not one country, not one time zone. People everywhere hit the same void at the same moment. Work stops, news freezes, conversations are cut short, and the most frightening part is that in the first moments, no one truly understands what is happening. This is the peak, but there is no cheering, no satisfaction, no sense of victory, only silence spreading outward, heavy and unsettling. Somewhere, Paras watches and realizes what he once saw as a technical project has escaped all personal limits. It is no longer the story of a small group, no longer contained within a screen. Millions are pulled into a moment of lost control they never chose. This climax is not an explosion. It is a breath held too long, forcing the world to pause, just long enough to see that what we thought was stable is far more fragile than we imagined. After the internet trembles, silence does not last. The agencies that once stood apart step in. The FBI follows the trail not through dramatic chases, but through code, habits, small details people forget. One morning in Fanwood, New Jersey, the familiar door of a suburban house opens. No armed raid, no cinematic scene, just a child stepping out of the bedroom where it all began. Paras is arrested. The evidence is clear. He admits his role. Then the sentence comes. 6 months of house arrest, community service, a fine. No prison, no punishment matching the scale of the damage the world just felt. Reactions come quickly. Anger, confusion. Some see mercy for a gifted child who lost his way. Others see a failure of justice. No one feels satisfied. The sentence offers no closure. It leaves an uncomfortable gap, as if the story passed its climax, but refused to end. And in that gap, a quiet question forms. If the consequences are this large, and the cost so small, where does the line between right and wrong truly sit? The story could have ended there, if everything stopped with Paras. But Mirai does not disappear. Before that bedroom door closed, Mirai's source code leaked. No longer held by a small group, it spread across the internet like an open blueprint, free to download, modify, and use. People who never met Paras, who never felt that original curiosity, began copying and evolving it in their own ways. Copycats appeared everywhere. Reaper, Satori, new variants with different names but the same core. Faster, stronger, more indifferent. Mirai is no longer tied to a face, a room, or a personal story. It becomes a phenomenon, a long-term consequence of decisions made early, when no one was paying attention. The internet keeps running, but beneath the surface, silent attacks continue day after day. Paras may have stopped, but what he created did not. Mirai lives on, not because someone intentionally feeds it, but because an entire system allowed it to exist. And when something keeps spreading after its creator is gone, the story is no longer about an individual. It is about the slow, lingering consequences the world will face long after the name Mirai fades from headlines. The internet survived Mirai. Websites came back. People kept scrolling, kept working, kept believing everything was fine. But something changed forever. Not in the code, but in how we see the systems we rely on every day. And the final question is not why a child could do this. It is what this system taught a child when it ignored him the very first time.